kinds of relationships that might be understood as commercial relationships or charitable relationships can be reconfigured as collaborative relationships that is of benefit to both parties. And that was actually quite inspiring to me. So some of the kinds of collaboration that we talked about, first of all, between artists, there was a lot of interest in the idea of some shared workspace, so not display or performance space, but workspace. Acknowledging that a lot of artists actually do work alone in the heat of the moment, but want to meet each other and may need each other's talents and ideas and support and so on. So that could range from a really small kind of thing, like some office space that people could use for an hour or two at a time by some arrangement, or something bigger that would involve studio space, shared meeting space, even shared reception, daycare, somebody mentioned, you know, you can think as grand or as small, but some kind of actual material space where people meet each other. And for kind of inspiration, interdisciplinarity, mutual support. And then there was, tying with Clark's group, interest in an online space as well for sharing information. I think maybe our emphasis was a little bit different from the communication group in that there was the idea of allowing people to find out what other talents were available. So not so much about advertising events and so on, which is really important, but our emphasis was on how do you find out who else is out there? If you're, say, a theater group who wants to draw in some new musical work or, you know, design work, and how can you find people who do that kind of work? Either for artists to use amongst themselves, or for businesses or consumers, purchasers, clients, etc., to find things to buy. So there could be a kind of barter element, and there could be a commercial element, like how do you sort of work in all those different purposes. So I don't know if this could be one big clearinghouse somehow, but it can have these multiple purposes. Also allowing newcomers to town to get their feeling, their grounding, so that you don't have to just know the right people in order to find your way. So there's a kind of accessibility dimension to that as well. Then also along the lines of collaboration with business, there was the idea of having a facilitator who would help businesses, like whether it's a hotel or what kind of a space, to understand what kind of benefit the arts might offer to them and what ways that they could involve the arts in their space. And again, that this wouldn't be a kind of idea of charity, but an idea of collaboration, you know, what the arts can contribute to those environments. Then in terms of the city, we talked about that too, about the integration of arts into planning processes, whether it's street renewal or new buildings or any of these kinds of things. Again, not just asking for funding, but arts participation in the process from the beginning, so that the arts dimension of things won't be the last thing that's considered, but will be part of the whole environment, and that this is good for the community as a whole. There was interesting discussion about the heritage community and the arts community and how they might be a little better articulated with each other. That museums in town, for example, have space, they have expertise in grant writing, they have charitable status. A lot of these things can be really useful to individual artists, and and on the other hand, the artists can offer animation or other kind of benefits to those institutions, and how can those collaborative relationships be fostered. And then I guess the last thing I would pick, there were so many, but is the idea of thinking of the relationship with audience as collaborative as well. And the idea of reaching out to the audience rather than trying to draw audience in. And I think that really ties in with things in other groups as well.
Great, thank you, Laura.